Friedrich Nietzsche was one of the most misunderstood thinkers of all time. A 19th century German philosopher, plagued by illness and isolation, he spoke not to the masses, but to the few. To those who feel like they don't belong. To those who've been dismissed, humiliated, or ignored. To those who are good, yet constantly defeated by those who are ruthless. He had a message for the powerless, and it wasn't pity. It was transformation. In his time, Nietzsche saw a world increasingly run by conformity, by herd morality, by people taught to suppress their instincts in favor of obedience. He called this the age of the last man, a generation addicted to comfort, mediocrity, and moral safety. They didn't want greatness, they wanted approval. Sound familiar? Nietzsche's warning was brutal but clear. The surest way to remain weak is to pretend weakness is a virtue. Like Machiavelli, Nietzsche understood that many good people aren't truly good. They're just afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of being seen, afraid of power. So they claim the moral high ground not out of principle, but out of fear. They preach humility because they're scared to lead. They speak of peace only because they've never felt the strength to fight. This is what Nietzsche called slave morality, the morality of the weak dressed up as virtue. Turn the other cheek, praise meekness, despise ambition, condemn power. But behind this sainthood of powerlessness lies something darker: resentment, a deep hatred of those who do have strength. Nietzsche's alternative wasn't cruelty, it wasn't domination, it was evolution, the creation of the Übermensch, the one who rises above the noise. The Übermensch isn't born strong, he is forged in the furnace of suffering. He has stared into the abyss of his own limitations and refused to be broken. Power, Nietzsche said, is not something evil. It is the will to become, the will to overcome who you were yesterday, the will to fight, not others, but your own cowardice. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. This is the core of his teaching. Find your why, your deep reason, and you'll stop needing validation. You'll stop begging for permission. You'll stop apologizing for wanting more. If you feel powerless, Nietzsche's advice isn't to wait for someone to rescue you. It's to stop lying to yourself. Stop pretending your fear is compassion. Stop mistaking inaction for wisdom. Stop calling your chains morality. You are not kind. You are afraid. You are not patient. You are indecisive. You are not humble. You are terrified of your own potential. That truth should sting, because it is the beginning of power. Nietzsche's goal wasn't to make people feel bad, it was to wake them up. He believed that only by facing your inner darkness, your anger, your envy, your raw ambition, can you grow. Not by rejecting it, but by mastering it, by integrating it. This is what he meant when he said, "Become who you are, not who your parents wanted, not who your society tolerates, but who you are, beneath the fear." We live in a world that tells us to be small, polite, and inoffensive, but Nietzsche warned, this world does not want your success. It wants your obedience. It does not want lions, it wants sheep. And if you follow that path long enough, you'll forget you were ever capable of anything else. So what does Nietzsche suggest? Don't play the victim. Don't moralize your passivity. Don't wait for permission. Rise, create, dare. Not because it's easy, but because if you don't, the world will be run by those who never cared about playing fair. Power is not evil. Wanting to win is not shameful. Wanting to leave a mark is not arrogance. What is evil is giving up your potential Because the world told you it's dangerous. What is evil is being too afraid to fight for something greater. Nietzsche's advice for the powerless is not to become tyrants. It is to stop pretending that weakness is noble. He's not asking you to hurt others. He's asking you to stop hurting yourself. You were not born to be passive. You were born to overcome, to suffer, to struggle, to transcend, and to become something the world no longer expects from people like you, a force. To understand power, Nietzsche believed, we must first understand suffering. He saw suffering not as something to eliminate, but something to transform. Pain, he believed, was not the enemy, but the raw material of greatness. That which does not kill us makes us stronger. But strength is not guaranteed. It must be forged. Most people experience pain and break. A few experience pain and build. So what separates the two? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not privilege, it's attitude. It is the decision to make pain meaningful, to turn it into fuel. You lost your job? Use the time to sharpen your mind. You were humiliated. Learn how to hold your center. You feel unseen, unloved. Good. Use it. Use that fire to shape yourself into someone who commands respect, not demands it. Nietzsche believed greatness demands self-overcoming, not self-love, not self-acceptance, self-overcoming. The idea that who you are now is only a draft, and your task is to sculpt that draft into something worthy of remembrance. Man is a rope stretched between the animal and the Übermensch. You are a bridge between who you were and who you could be, between fear and freedom, between comfort and destiny. And bridges are meant to be crossed. Nietzsche had no patience for self-pity, not because he lacked empathy, but because he knew. Self-pity traps you in your smallest self. When you feel powerless, it's easy to look for someone to blame. Your parents, your past, your boss, the system. But Nietzsche's philosophy was brutal in its simplicity. Blame no one. Take it all. Own everything. Only then can you claim the full power of your life. Let's be clear. Nietzsche is not saying your pain isn't real. He's saying your pain is your responsibility. And that's terrifying, but also liberating. Because if it's your responsibility, then it is also your power. You can rewrite the story. You can turn scars into symbols. You can turn your lowest moments into your most powerful ones. There's a word Nietzsche used often: transvaluation. It means flipping the values of society upside down. What the world calls weakness, you call depth. What they call failure, you call foundation. What they mock as too intense, you use as drive. Society tells you to seek comfort. Nietzsche says, seek challenge, seek hardship, seek the mountain no one else dares climb. Why? Because that is where you find yourself. Not in peace, but in pressure. Not in applause, but in struggle. Powerlessness is not just external. It becomes a mindset. And Nietzsche's mission was to annihilate that mindset. Not with false positivity, not with fake optimism, but with a spiritual hammer, to destroy the illusions, keeping you small. I say unto you, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. What does that mean? It means inside your suffering is your art. Inside your rage, your mission. Inside your fear, your transformation. You don't need to calm down. You need to direct the chaos, aim it, shape it, sharpen it. Nietzsche knew history is not made by the content or the comfortable. It is made by those who faced hell and came out holding fire. So if you feel broken, if you feel defeated, if you feel invisible, good. That means you're standing at the edge where everything changes. You can step back or you can leap forward. Because power is not a position, it's a direction. But here's the hard truth. Most people don't want to become. They want certainty. They want comfort. They want to be told you're fine just the way you are. And sometimes you are, but other times you're not. You're lying to yourself. You're hiding behind good enough. And Nietzsche's voice cuts through that lie like a blade. He'd ask you, are you still growing? Are you pushing your edges? Are you saying the uncomfortable truths? Are you doing work that scares you? Or are you just busy trying to be nice? He would tell you that you don't need to be nice. You need to be true. Truth, to Nietzsche, is sacred, even if it's ugly, even if it's inconvenient, even if it costs you everything. The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. If you want to rise, be ready to be misunderstood. Be ready to be hated. Be ready to be alone. But here's the paradox. Once you become strong enough to walk alone, people will follow you, not because you begged them, but because strength is magnetic, conviction is contagious, and truth has gravity. So what does this mean practically? It means, say what you believe before you're sure anyone agrees. Start the business before you know if it'll work. Write the book before you feel qualified. Take the leap before the net appears. Because waiting for permission is the fastest way to never move. And that's the ultimate tragedy of powerlessness. It's not that you don't have power, it's that you keep waiting to feel ready to use it, but you never will. Because power doesn't show up first, it follows action. Power is a consequence, never a prerequisite. Nietzsche wanted you to act, even when your hands are shaking, even when your voice cracks, even when your past whispers that you're not enough. Because that's when it counts. That's when something shifts inside you. And that shift is where power is born. So here's the question. What would your life look like if you stopped waiting? What would change if you stopped seeking approval and started seeking truth? What would happen if you stopped hiding your strength and started sharpening it? Would you be lonelier? Maybe. But would you be freer? Absolutely. Would you be more dangerous? Without question. And would you finally start becoming the person you were always meant to be? Yes. There's one more idea Nietzsche gave the world, maybe the most powerful of all: eternal recurrence. He asks you to imagine something terrifying, that you have to live this exact life, every day, every choice, every regret, over and over again, for all eternity. No edits, no second chances, just you, repeating the same actions, with no escape. It's a thought experiment, but it's meant to jolt you awake. Would you still say what you said? Would you still settle for what you settled for? Would you still hide your strength, delay your purpose, waste your fire? If the answer is no, then Nietzsche's advice is simple. Change your life. Now. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for clarity. Because the clock isn't just ticking, it's repeating. You are not powerless. You are just out of practice. You've practiced avoiding risk. You've practiced being small. You've practiced making others comfortable instead of making yourself real. But you can practice something else. You can practice being direct. You can practice being intense. You can practice being dangerously alive. What if your weakness is just untamed power? What if your anxiety is unfocused energy? What if your suffering is not a punishment, but an invitation to rise, not spiritually, not metaphorically, actually, to rise above your past, to rise above the stories you've been fed, to rise above the mediocrity that surrounds you? Because Nietzsche knew what most people don't want to hear. You will never feel fully ready. You will never feel fully healed. And that is okay, because the point isn't to be perfect. The point is to become powerful in spite of your wounds, to walk into the fire and become forged, not flawless, forged. Most self-help tells you to soften, to soothe yourself, to be gentle. Nietzsche says, sharpen. Sharpen your edges. Sharpen your will. Sharpen your sense of who you are, not to hurt others, but so no one can ever dull you again. You are not here to fit in. You are not here to cope. You are not here to be liked. You are here to become, to do what only you can do, to say what only you can say, to walk a path so original that people won't understand it until long after you're gone. And when they finally do, they'll call you powerful, they'll call you visionary, they'll call you dangerous in the best possible way. And that is what Nietzsche wanted for you. Not to be a good person, but to be a person of depth, of fire, of consequence. A person who lives so honestly that the world has no choice but to adapt to your presence, not the other way around. So if you feel powerless, let this be your call, not to find safety, but to find strength, not to wait, but to walk, not to become perfect, but to become real. Because the world doesn't need more people trying to be acceptable. It needs more people who are undeniably themselves. People who rise, people who roar, people who refuse to stay small. That is the Nietzschean path. Not easy, not popular, but necessary. And in the end, it is the only kind of life worth living.